Jets are the biggest comeback story in NHL history. The Jets won championships, shattered records, beat the world's best, and earned devoted fans who bled red, white, and blue. But in the 1990s, the economy turned against small-market Canadian hockey teams. And in 1996, the Jets moved to Phoenix, leaving a devastated city behind. Most people thought the Jets would never return to Winnipeg, but some refused to give up the dream. This is a story of how a community pulled off the impossible to see their Jets fly again in the National Hockey League. But to understand why Winnipeggers were so passionate about their beloved Jets, let's go back to 1972. The Winnipeg Jets were one of 12 new teams that formed the World Hockey Association, a rebel league that challenged the established National Hockey League. The NHL had power and most of the world's best hockey players, although the average salary was the lowest in all major sports. When the Winnipeg Jets shocked the hockey world by signing NHL power forward Bobby Hull for millions of dollars, he instantly became the WHA's greatest star.
In order to get a superstar into the WHA, that's what was required. To become a credible league, each team had to have a star player, at least one. Bobby Hull was probably the biggest star, and so it really gave the WHA a status.
Former Jets goalie Joe Daly runs a sports card store in Winnipeg.
Once Bobby signed and was allowed to play, it encouraged other players to jump to the league.
Hull wowed Jets fans by scoring over 50 goals in 4 straight seasons, and the Jets broke new ground. Canadian players were considered the world's best, but the Jets recruited Anders Hedberg, Ulf Nilsson, and other Swedes. Their speed and finesse thrilled Jets fans and changed professional hockey forever.
The philosophy in the league was that we were going to be too soft with that many Europeans on it. I think we contradicted that. They really elevated the play of all of us.
The Avco Cup was the WHA's equivalent to the Stanley Cup in the NHL. From 76 to 78, the Winnipeg Jets won 2 WHA championship trophies. By 1979, the league was struggling. In the last WHA season before it folded, the Jets won a 3rd championship title.
I think the last one we kind of snuck away from Gretzky and the boys in Edmonton.
When you look back over it all and analyze it all, it's probably the greatest thrill that could ever happen to a bunch of guys that have worked very, very hard for something like this.
We spent a year and a half, 24/7, just doing everything possible to convince the NHL to let us in. And going into the NHL, of course, there was a fee to be paid, a franchise fee. And the strictest term was that we could only protect 2 players. And we were last in the draft. So we came in worse than an expansion team.
Fans didn't care about the NHL's punishing entry requirements.
We only had a 10,000-seat building, and the quick fix was to add on 6,000 seats in the upper deck. It was an old building. It was built about 1949, 1950. But we needed to have a minimum of 15,000 seats to play in the NHL, so they added the upper deck seats, and off we went.
The best thing that ever happened tonight.
I think it's terrific.
We've been waiting for it for a long time. I think they'll do really good, too. Not first place in their division, but maybe behind Chicago, I hope, anyway.
Well, in the first season, we ended up winning about 20 games.
The Jets played a grueling season and finished dead last in the NHL.
And in the second year, we had just a really very, very tough year. That was the toughest year of hockey I've ever been in. We won 9 games that year. We had a winless streak that went for 35 games.
But by finishing last, the Jets got the first overall pick in the 1981 NHL draft. Their pick was 18-year-old phenomenon Dale Hawerchuk. Like Hall before him, in 1981, the Jets introduced their #1 draft pick to thousands of fans at Portage in Maine. The pressure was on to lead the team to greatness.
To sign my contract, my father and I came out to Winnipeg. I remember looking up, looking at the buildings all around. Everybody was just peeping out the window, so it was pretty cool.
We really thought that we could build a franchise around him.
I was 20, Dale was 18, and he was very talented. He could really put that puck in the net. He took most of the load and carried it so well, and he was a big leader on our team.
People saw Dale as the future.
Hawerchuk's first season was sensational. He won Rookie of the Year, shattering 17 team records, and became the youngest player in NHL history to reach 100 points.
Every year he was just a fantastic player, and, like, consistent, and he had a very special skill, that's for sure.
We were good for each other because we pushed each other. We were both centermen, and we both wanted to play a lot, and we both wanted to win. When we elevated our games, that elevated the next guy's game.
It was a great young team to play on.
And the fans loved him.
The whiteout was interesting. You've got fans that are wearing white without being told to.
It was like a blizzard in the Winnipeg arena.
People just showed up to these games decked in white, and it just took on a life of its own. It's the Winnipeg whiteout.
And that, holy cow, what's going on out there? This is awesome.
1992 marked the debut of Teemu Selanne.
My dad was the type of person where he would do anything for me. Once he saw how passionate I became about the Jets right around Teemu's rookie year, he did everything he could to take me to as many games as I could.
As a rookie, Selanne set a new record, scoring an incredible 76 goals in 84 games.
And we went to the Jets store, and my dad bought me a jersey, and I got a Selanne number 13. And I remember the next day being really excited to wear my Teemu jersey to school.
We actually played pretty good hockey, but it was just amazing how much bad luck we had.
It was a good hockey club. Problem was, you had Gretzky and company in Edmonton, and then you had Calgary, which were these monsters in red uniforms. So very, very tough division.
The Jets were in a tough division on the ice, while the local economy was even tougher. The Canadian dollar plunged to 73 cents.
Well, we didn't sell it very often. The building was really old and really not suited to the NHL. We only sold out when Toronto and Montreal came. It was tough. Parking, the concessions, the acoustics, the sightlines weren't good, and that's why you couldn't sell the tickets.
We were a small market team and a lower budgeted team, so we were behind the 8 ball right from the get-go.
We were paying rent and getting no concession revenue, no parking revenue, and that's when we knew, as the owners, we could see players' salaries going up, and our revenues had nowhere to go. There was just no way for the hockey team to survive without a new building.
Then came Black Wednesday, May 3rd, 1995. The Jets owners couldn't afford to keep losing money. Unless they could find a buyer in Winnipeg, the team would be sold and moved to the United States.
Atlanta, Minneapolis, Memphis, Houston. Vultures are all there.
So my mom had gotten us ready. We made the sign. We spent the whole day getting the sign together and try to save the Jets.
The Winnipeg Jets need just over $220 million in order to build an arena and survive.
During the Save the Jets rally, a group of Winnipeg businessmen that included a young Mark Chipman had desperately tried to buy the team.
There was a party going on at Portage in Maine, and all I can remember was looking down at it and recalling music, and at that very sort of moment in time, it was when I came to realize that we weren't going to be successful.
There was lots of nights where we played at home and we turned around and we knew there wasn't enough people there. There was opportunity to save the team, and that was to go to the games and buy tickets, and at the end of the day, I personally don't believe that happened. The Save the Jets rally was too little too late.
The dark day finally came. August 15th, 1995. team owners announced the Jets would play one last season in Winnipeg. April 28th, 1996. The Stanley Cup playoffs. A must-win game for the Jets. But a powerful Detroit team destroys the Jets' dreams with a punishing 4-1 victory. It's the last time Winnipeg fans would see their beloved Jets.
The Jets gone for good, but nowhere has been made.
After 24 years, Jets fans were in tears.
I was actually at the final game, and it felt awful.
People were crying, and I remember thinking, this is the last time I'm going to see them. This is the last time I'm going to see them on the ice. I mean, I was just filled with such anxiety.
Hey, I remember that day well. I was devastated when the team left because I was younger. I had my future invested in Winnipeg and Manitoba. And it's interesting because the longer the Jets had been gone, the more people told me they were there every night. I was there every night, and they weren't. And that's just the fact of the matter.
Distraught fans searched for anyone to blame, particularly team owner Barry Shankarov and NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman.
We wish there would have been a new building. We wish that there would have been people who wanted to own the Winnipeg Jets in the 1990s, but that wasn't the case. I understand it, but just because people were looking for someone to blame doesn't mean that the blame was put in the right place.
The Jets fans were still mad at the NHL, and I think they're taking it out on Barry Shankarov, which is not right to do because it wasn't his fault.
Emotions were high, and there were death threats.
You know, all the threats that were against me or my family, all the, if somebody had a better idea, boy, would we have listened.
I'd like to thank everybody, the people of Manitoba, all the Jets fans, and especially the staff of the Winnipeg Jets, MEC, all the levels of government, and everybody who supported the hockey club in the past. Thank you.
To lose the team was a personal tragedy for me and for my partners, and for the city it was just almost a death knell.
It was such a huge devastation that when the Jets left, I literally had to box everything up and I couldn't look at it.
I think it really hurt the city. Hurt economically and psychologically.
The economics of operating in Winnipeg, the size of the city, there was no prospect of a new arena, and the then existing facility was inadequate, and nobody wanted to own the team.
We vowed to try and keep hockey alive. It was just a vital asset that the city had to preserve. Well, we heard that the market was too small and that the league was broken and that people wouldn't pay NHL ticket prices and there wasn't enough corporate support and that it would just fail again.
But Mark Chipman forged ahead with a new plan for pro hockey in Winnipeg.
Our focus back then was to run a viable business in the American Hockey League.
To get the NHL back, he needed another team first. So Chipman and his company, True North Sports and Entertainment, bought the Minnesota Moose and moved them into the Winnipeg Arena.
Mark brought the Moose to Winnipeg, and that building sufficed until Mark could figure out how to get a new building built.
We struggled as a team in our first year, didn't make a good first impression. We'd like a do-over, but they don't give you those in this business. So it was tough, but I wouldn't give the year away. We learned an awful lot in that first year, we really did. It wasn't a lot of fun. People who get into this business, you generally do so with the intention of winning. And we had a really tough start.
Their first year was a disaster. So the coach was fired and replaced with former Jet Randy Carlyle, who turned the team around.
It's an organization we built from the ground up. We faced a lot of challenges. We worked diligently to change people's minds and that this was a good product.
Once we got the Moose established and viable, the next step was to get a building built.
Eaton's had gone past its time. The store was closed in the city of Winnipeg. I had remained vacant for a number of years.
So Chipman and True North partnered with billionaire businessman David Thompson, who owned the Eaton's building.
Downtown needed to be revitalized. And it struck me that we might be able, in a creative way, to play a part.
The design incorporates the very best, well-tested, leading-edge features and spectator amenities of the many new generation entertainment and sports centers built across North America.
I was skeptical, just like a lot of people were. I thought the building was too small.
Would you rather have 15,000 people in a 15,000 seat building or go down in Florida where you sit 10,000 people in a 20,000 seat building?
As the new MTS Center was filled with cheering Moose fans, Jets lovers were mourning the loss of their beloved old arena.
I went to the arena and I bought these old seats. So I was in there one last time. I really didn't think it was going to go.
The time it took to get Winnipeg Arena down to the ground was certainly based on stubbornness.
It was kind of like our one last stand.
The shell came down, but the frame stood up. They had to pull it. They had to sweep its legs from underneath it.
When the building actually came down, it was something that was really emotional to see the place that I had such great memories growing up demolished.
But it was time for new memories.
We needed to run the MTS Center successfully and do that for a period of time. We needed for the game and the economics of the National Hockey League to correct themselves.
NHL salaries were escalating to the breaking point. The owners locked the players out in 2004. Out of the work stoppage came an agreement to control players' salaries.
Shortly thereafter, the National Hockey League took notice of what we were doing, and then it was just a matter of being patient and waiting for the opportunity to come along.
In 2007, we were at another point where a number of people, individuals, cities, groups, were expressing an interest in having an NHL franchise.
So in 2010, Chipman and True North were invited to buy a struggling NHL franchise, the Phoenix Coyotes, the same team that used to be the Jets. But like Winnipeg in the 90s, the Coyotes were not leaving without a fight.
Coyotes are our team. They belong in Arizona. They belong here. We want them to stay here.
I was in New York, and we had spent the whole week there working on the transaction and virtually bringing it to a conclusion.
Phoenix fans anxiously awaited the news.
We were told that by 5 p.m. that day that we would know one way or the other. We had flights to catch, and we jumped in a cab. I was stuck in a tunnel without any cell service about the time I was supposed to get that call. Determined that about 10 to 5 that Glendale had stepped forward and we're keeping the team for a year. And obviously we were disappointed because we'd worked so hard. I really felt as though that wasn't going to be our only opportunity.
I think you can have an aspiration, but you have to leave yourself open and respect the process.
Chipman's dream was not dead yet.
Atlanta had been a troubled franchise for a number of years. They had ownership disputes, which made it difficult for them to accomplish the things that they wanted to do. As in other cases where we try to avoid relocation, we explored all options. The franchise needed to be sold.
I think there started to be this, shift where people started to really think it could be Atlanta.
It was confirmed at some point by somebody in Atlanta.
The Atlanta situation. Maybe it is going to be Atlanta.
There was a fair amount of pressure because, the Atlanta deal wasn't introduced to us until later in the spring. And so we had to move quickly on it, but we also had the benefit of all the work we had done the year prior on the Phoenix transaction, I would say the Atlanta deal was concluded with a few hours to spare.
I remember getting the phone call at 4 in the morning telling me I might want to go back to the office, and Mark telling me to send the release. And I said, which release? We've got one saying it's not happening, and we've got one which saying it is happening today. And he goes, send the big one. And I'm like, really? And there was that pause and kind of soaks it, and he goes, yep, send the big one. We're going today. And I remember vividly taking a deep breath and hitting send.
May 31st, 2011.
It was like 6 in the morning. I got a text from a friend. It's on. I just booked it to the Forks, threw my Timu jersey on, had a Jets hat on. As you're getting closer to the Forks, you saw people with flags and banners and their Jets jerseys on and hats and all flooding towards the Forks. And that's where we stood in just like such great anticipation waiting for that announcement.
Today, on behalf of my family, our partner David Thompson, and our entire organization, I am excited beyond words to announce our purchase of the Atlanta Thrashers. In a sense, I guess you could say the true north, our city and our province, has received the call we've long since been waiting for.
It was just such a great sense of camaraderie between strangers, and we were just overjoyed.
And when Chipman made his announcement, kind of had to cover my face and my eyes, and I heard one of my students whisper, I've never seen a teacher cry before.
I screamed for joy, and then I wept a little.
I was just kind of more or less a puddle.
We get to be back in a place we wish we hadn't left in 1996.
But with every triumph comes another challenge.
The best way for our fans here in Winnipeg to celebrate the opportunity is to buy season tickets. Selling season tickets, selling 13,000 season tickets, is the best message to send to the NHL Board of Governors before they meet on June 21st. And to be candid, this isn't going to work very well unless this building is sold out every night.
Were we worried about the drive to 13,000? Were we concerned about it? Most certainly. What's scenario B and C in the event that we get to 8 or 10,000?
Could they pull it off?
I had a casual wager of a dinner with Mark over how quickly it would happen. I thought it would take somewhere between 48 and 72 hours.
The tickets would be sold online. So at noon on a Saturday, fans waited to buy tickets for a team that had no name, no jersey, and no logo.
We had 6 computers going. A friend of mine who kind of spearheaded this whole group, he was the one who got through. And we kind of run and look at his computer, and then we run back just in case, he didn't, and it was such an exciting time. It really was one of the best feelings in my life.
Sold out within, a couple of minutes, and it took another 10 or 12 minutes for credit cards to clear.
As it played out, it may have been one of the most phenomenal, successful season ticket drives in the history of season ticket drives.
Winnipeggers can't take for granted what we have.
I think the success of the franchise will rest on the integrity, the character, and ultimately the pride that is instilled not just within the organization, but within the entire populace.
Winnipeg got a team back, but they face bigger challenges in the months ahead.
The new team names that I heard floating around were the Polar Bears.
The Polar Bears, it just kind of reminded me of my girls' soccer teams, like the Blueberries or the Raspberries or something.
Of course, there was the option of the Manitoba Moose.
Winnipeg Falcons.
The Falcons would have been, I think, really acceptable.
Winnipeg Thrashers.
Manitoba Ice.
And I tuned those ones out. I thought the only choice would be the Jets.
Whatever he calls them, I'll cheer for them.
With thousands of hockey fans watching on big screens inside the MTS Center, Chipman publicly announced the name at the NHL draft.
It's now my pleasure to introduce our Executive Vice President and General Manager, Mr. Kevin Cheveldayoff, who will make our first pick on behalf of the Winnipeg Jets.
Somebody came in the day before the draft I said they heard from a good source. They think the team's going to be called the Winnipeg Jets. And my tears started coming. I couldn't stop it. I wasn't crying. They just came. Like, I felt so good. It's been a long time waiting for that.
I thought it would be a very good move to call them the Jets. And that was the people speaking. Sometimes you just have to listen to the people. I don't know what would happen if they didn't name them the Jets, so let's not even go there.
In bringing the name back, we wanted to do so in such a way that we're able to bring some real meaning to it and to authenticate it. And it seemed to me the best way to do that was to draw a very meaningful link to the Air Force history that our city has enjoyed for many, many years.
The new Jets had an arena and a name. Now it was time to unveil the new jerseys at 17 Wing Royal Canadian Air Force.
We've had a great relationship with 17 Wing. That is to say, the Moose had. We did a series of military appreciation nights. We were trying to create a very authentic look, a timeless feel that gives you the sense that teams, while it's new on the one hand, there's a feel to it that gives you the significant amount of heritage. When we tried to find those linkages, that image, that Air Force roundel just seemed to be so iconic.
Today is the culmination of months of anticipation. So in order not to delay it anymore, ladies and gentlemen, these are the jerseys for your Winnipeg Jets.
I ordered the white one. In the event we do a whiteout, I can wear my jersey to the game. And I'm ordering number 11 for the year they came back. And on the name bar, 2 words, told you.
It's still a little surreal. I mean, now you see players with jerseys. Is this real? And that is tangible, and that is real.
It could have been called anything. It could have had, the most horrendous jerseys, the most terrible name, and I would be saying, go Polar Bears, go in light pink.
Rebranding was complete. But to satisfy hungry Jets fans, only a winning team will do.
The people here are very passionate about their hockey, and they certainly don't want to go down this road a second time. They've been down it once, and it's going to be our job to make sure that we have success here. I think the big part for us was we had to get Andrew Ladd signed here, and he's going to be a big part of our future here. He's a tremendous character, had tremendous success for a young guy, and him and I have to forge a relationship here that leads us into the future. And he has all the quality values and the traits that we see in a good leader.
Andrew Ladd knows how to build a winner, a tough forward who won Stanley Cups in Carolina and Chicago.
To be a star player on a team like one of the frontline guys is a new challenge for me.
He was captain of the Thrashers, but will need to work even harder in Winnipeg.
We have 18, 19-year-olds last year, and those guys that were great for us as young guys, but they have to want to take that next step. I have to want to take that next step as a leader. Kind of a glass box here. Everyone's going to be looking at us, and it's going to be tough to kind of, I guess maybe just settle everyone down and just get everyone just to play, because that's what it's all about at the end of the day.
Eric Fair is a fierce competitor who joins Ladd as one of the core Jet players.
I was born in Winkler, Manitoba. I got drafted to the Washington Capitals and eventually traded to the Winnipeg Jets.
Though talented, Fair's recovering from a serious injury.
David Steckel was going into the box. I was jumping out, and he was skating pretty fast, and I didn't see him coming and bumped into him and dislocated my shoulder again. To just bump into your own teammate and have that happen was pretty devastating. I tore my labrum with that hit.
You'll have a core day, and then, it'll be a little harder on the ice.
After the collision in January, I took a month or 2 off to rehab it, and so they basically had to repair the labrum completely. And After I did that, it's just a long recovery process. This being my second shoulder surgery on that shoulder, it's something that really needs to take time, and we really have to let it heal before really forcing the issue. It's something I wish I would have done in January because I want to start the new season here. I want to be playing the home opener. I want to play in that game more than anything.
We're looking for good people that can play for the organization and play with passion, and we feel we know what brings success and what character traits we're looking for. There's a lot of things involved besides just the type of play that you put forward.
The NHL draft was a great experience. When we sat down with our scouts and we talked about obviously where we were picking, picking 7th overall, from all of my scouts, they said, we want Mark. And it kept coming back to that over and over and over again. He's a player that wasn't very highly ranked at this point in time last year, but at the end of the year, his development had just spiked astronomically, and all indications were maybe the best was yet to come.
My agent told me to take out my gum at pick 7. So I don't know if he had any inclination that I was going to be picked, so I took out my gum right away.
Mark Scheifele was just sitting to our right when we knew we were going to make the selection. I kind of looked over to my right as I was walking, and I gave him a wink. The Winnipeg Jets are proud to select from the Barrie Coats of the Ontario Hockey League, Mark Scheifele.
My legs were shaking like I could barely walk. Like hugging my family, I could barely shuffle over to see them. Pretty sure my family felt me shaking. It's probably the happiest moment of my life, but it was probably the most nerve-wracking time of my life. So it was an unreal feeling and something I'll always remember.
Well, Dale Hawerchuk did factor into the due diligence side of things.
He's the kind of kid you look at and you say, you know what? He's going to get better. He's going to improve because he wants it.
So I think when we did draft him, it's a feather in Dale's cap from the development standpoint.
It was exciting, I know, for him and his family, and even for the Barrie Colts organization. Quite proud of him.
Everyone says you're going to be a trivia question for the rest of your life. It's an honor to be the first pick of the Winnipeg Jets.
Rookie camp is the beginning for your whole organization to try to get a handle on your draft picks.
22 young prospects arrive for rookie camp, 1 week before main training camp begins. It's a chance for management and coaches to evaluate future players.
There's going to be pressure, and that comes with being the first pick to Winnipeg. Dale always says a pro career isn't easy, and he said once the draft ends, the easy part's over. You got to work even harder.
Trying to build an organization that's going to compete, it really comes down to building something of our own.
Scheifele is determined to crack the lineup. But can this teenager compete with the men of the NHL?
I'm Red Sharon at the practice of the brand new Winnipeg Jets as co-owner Mark Chipman talks about his dreams and his fears. Tonight on The National.
We made an announcement of our desire to acquire the Atlanta Thrashers on May 31. It was June 21 where we had final approval with the NHL Board of Governors. So from June 21 to call it a 90 to 100-day window to transition our organization, to transition our building, to transition hockey operations, take an existing team and brand and move it to Newfoundland, to bring a new team and brand and move it from Georgia, to then rebrand it here in Manitoba, and to transition all those changes throughout the building.
Jets Communications Director Scott Brown is racing to transform the MTS Center into a major league arena. Everything must be perfect, because millions of eyes will soon be scrutinizing the Jets' new home.
We are about 6 weeks away from being ready for opening night on October 9th. This is the main dressing room for the hockey team, and it's undergoing a monstrous conversion. Players are going to be coming in here on the 17th of September when the main camp gets going. This dressing room is their home, and this dressing room needs to be ready to go when players start arriving en masse and settling into this room. One of the big changes that the fans are going to notice clearly is the glass. People sitting in the front row are going to notice that it moves a lot more than what they're used to. So I would suggest people that are sitting there in the home opener don't put their beer or their drinks on the front on the bridge. When you're standing near center ice, you get the feeling that everybody is right on top of you. Like if you look up, you can definitely see almost the eyeballs of the people sitting in the upper level, which is not something I'm sure they experience in a lot of other bigger buildings in the National Hockey League. It'll be a unique feel, given the idea and the noise level that there's probably going to be for the home side. It'll just add a dimension, which I hope is an advantage to the Jets.
The veteran players have arrived for physicals, a critical preseason test. Arrive in shape, and you can have an all-star season. If not, say goodbye to the big league. Of 58 men in training camp, 38 are competing for just a few jobs. After all their hard work to get here, they still have less than a 1 in 12 chance of achieving their childhood dream. Most NHL hopefuls are in their 20s, but goaltender Chris Mason is 35. After a dismal season last year, he's working hard to keep his job. Family matters just intensify the pressure.
My wife is due. The date's October 12th. Everybody's so excited about, October 9th, the first game, the return of the Winnipeg Jets, myself included. And, sometimes our little baby gets overshadowed in that, but I'll tell you what, I'll be crossing my fingers that it doesn't come early. So. Last year was statistically probably one of my worst. I'm getting later in my career. I don't think, I'm declining in my health or anything like that because I'm 35. I've got along with all the goalies I've played with. The reality is you're competing for ice time, and I want to take ice time away from him, and he wants to take ice time away from me.
With rookie camp complete and the veterans now in town, it's the first Jets training camp in 15 years. Thousands of cheering fans show up to see their new favorite players. And this is just a practice.
The first thing you have to do is you have to establish a work ethic in your players. We have got an existing franchise that we've absorbed, and now we're going to take this group of players and we're going to try to mold them, shape them into what we believe is going to be a winning, successful formula.
The successful teams I've had right from the get-go for training camp, they've set a pace to their game and how they practice, and that pace is carried over right into the season and kind of led to successful things.
When it comes down to maybe making the final cuts, it's about that relationship that you have with your coach. It's about that relationship as an organization, that you all have that big picture mentality.
Jets GM Kevin Cheveldayoff has his own mission. He has to assemble a winning team under an insane timeline.
At the end of the day, you're dealing with players and you're dealing with people. They have feelings, they have families. When you watch a player play, you see their talents, you see their abilities to skate, to shoot, to play the game at a high level. But deep down, they're just like you and me. And all those things come into play when you're trying to build a team.
In 4 NHL seasons, Derek Meach has played just a third of those games. There's no guarantee he'll make the Jets. And increasing the pressure, he was born and raised in Winnipeg. So he's fighting to make his dream team while his every move is watched.
There's been challenges throughout my whole career, and this is just a new exciting challenge for me. Born and raised in Winnipeg, Manitoba. My friends and family are very pumped up. Just growing up and watching the Jets, and then I was excited just to get them back in the city, never mind sign a contract with them. It's basically up to me, and I'm not a rookie coming into a training camp anymore, as I know I can play in this league.
Mark Scheifele's junior coach, Dale Howardchuk, offered this advice to the 18-year-old.
He said just to be aware, because people are going to be out there trying to hit you, trying to take your head out. So he said be aware of who's on the ice and be aware where people are on the ice. You don't want to be caught in the wrong situation with a guy that weighs 250 pounds. That's probably the biggest help he's given me.
If you're looking for the responses in people, when somebody attacks you physically, or do we go to the hard areas to have success, there's probably a spot for 2 or 3 guys. It might be 1, it might be 4. It really depends on where this competition lands.
Winnipeg's a warm city when it comes to people. We're a vibrant city. Things are happening here. We've got a new stadium being built. We've got a beautiful human rights museum going up. We've got a wonderful new airport. I think we're turning things around and becoming a why not city instead of a why city.
We're a community on the move. We're a community that's forward-thinking. We're a community that wants to regain its place in history and move forward. The MTS Center really has been one of those things you can look at in Winnipeg where the city started to turn a page to the point where NHL hockey is not just a dream, it's a reality.
In day 4 for us, we've got the doubleheader of games against Columbus, and we'll be able to make a good assessment of where everybody's at there.
Claude Noel evaluates his troops. Their next big test, the Jets' first NHL exhibition game.
Even the first exhibition game, I mean, you can feel the vibe building now. It feels so good to feel the city so excited.
We feel very good about the fact that we were able to return to a place that we knew was passionate about hockey.
It's probably going to be like a playoff type atmosphere, knowing there hasn't been hockey here for 15 years.
Because he would have been so excited that this actually came to pass. I think a lot about that my dad never got to see my son, and that really could have been a special relationship to have my dad and myself and my son share in this whole experience together.
You never really know how important something is to you until you lose it. I think we learned that lesson in spades in '96 because we've sort of recaptured something, a lost jewel, so to speak, that we're going to hold very, very closely now.
I want to play in the NHL. It's been a dream of mine my whole life, and I'll do whatever it takes.